The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by 2T Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is a Jurassic Park edition. Today, we're talking Jurassic Park 3. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man who's got me in the sights with the biggest gun possible, maybe ever on screen, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
You mean there's 2 islands with dinosaurs on them?
I like that we get to the third movie before we start realizing there are 2 islands.
Yeah, they wrapped a plot implausibility into a nice little sequel gag.
I'm trying to
Courtesy of
remember
Michael Jeter.
when we get to Jurassic World.
Uh-huh.
I honestly don't remember if they ever say what island they're on. So it seems like...
No, they've got to.
I don't know.
It's
I don't
New
remember.
Blah. It's New Blah, for sure.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and I only know that because of the Lego Jurassic World and the Camp Cretaceous series.
Well, that disappoints me, because it feels like we had New Blah. I was kind of hoping it was like we go to Sorna and just never go back to New Blah. I liked the idea of that.
It's just I think you have to keep kind of switching between the islands. So I think you've got to go back and forth. So, every time you do a movie on one island, when it comes to the next movie, it turns out they've been doing a lot of stuff on the other island. And then vice versa for about 8 movies.
Well, here we are, the much derided Jurassic Park 3. I think we like this movie more than most people.
Well, apparently so.
Yeah, 2001 film, 49% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which I believe is 5% less than we said The Lost World was. But it's directed by Joe Johnston, who we mentioned in our ranking episode.
Sure.
We kind of described him as a disciple, a protege of Lucas and Spielberg. But... he's had a career that is, he doesn't make a lot of shitty movies. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. A movie I think is...
Why did you lead with that one?
Well, I mean,
it's a good, it's fun, but...
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine, exactly. Whereas The Rocketeer is a very good movie.
So that's what I was going to say next, was The Rocketeer. This is... one of the most undervalued movies, I think, certainly in superhero films just generally. The Rocketeer is great, but he directed Jumanji, October Sky, Hidalgo, and then he gets, some real work of today with The Wolfman and Captain America, the First Avenger.
Yeah, he's building universes out there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think obviously when we're looking at him in the context of Jurassic Park 3, we are kind of thinking of him as Spielberg's protege just because of the context.
Yeah.
But he's definitely, as a director, transcended that tag over the years.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you look at...
Nonetheless, Jurassic Park 3 it's trying to be a Spielberg-esque movie.
That's the problem. So, we'll get there, but the biggest takeaway for me is that Steven Spielberg, just as a note, not everybody has to do a movie like you do a movie. Nobody has to care about families in the way that you care about families. Because clearly Joe Johnston can't do what you do with families.
Yeah. And I guess, of course, it's partly the context and also the legacy of working on the Young Indiana Jones TV series, where Spielberg imitation is the name of the game.
Sure.
Adventure has a name, and it's Steven Spielberg.
Right.
So, you can kind of come at it that way, or you can come at it that way, or you can come at it as a Joe Johnston film. But I don't think even he is trying to make this movie in his own image. I think he's trying to make it in Spielberg's image.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But that doesn't affect his other movies.
When I think of, I don't know that people loved The Wolfman, but when I think of that movie
No, they didn't.
And Captain America, I think of a surer hand as a director.
He's very technically accomplished.
Yeah.
Classically trained, I'd say.
Sure.
His approach to cinema is kind of nuts and bolts in a very pleasing way.
Mm-hmm. Well, this movie and I'll say this for this movie and the series, this front half of the series, a budget of $93 million. When it's 2001 and you're still keeping your Jurassic Park movie under $100 million, granted, you stopped your movie on a dime at the end, and maybe that's why, but...
Yeah.
But I think that says something. And an opening weekend of $50.7 million, in the USA, $181.1 million, and in the world, $386.7 million. So this movie's a bit derided, but made money.
It made money, and...
Not a failure.
Not a failure, and I think part of the reason the budget is lower than you'd expect is by 2001, the digital worm has turned.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably more expensive to do the Stan Winston animatronics than it was to do the digital effects.
Maybe.
Whereas the reverse would have been true when they made the first Jurassic Park.
Sure. We have some modified openings here, right?
We certainly do. That puddle, our signature puddle is back.
Yeah, so we have the Universal logo with... I noted what my note was. We have the Universal logo with music that says, "Hey, please trust us."
Sure. Yeah.
And that's followed by this modified kind of water splash Amblin logo, which never came in before this movie. So I found that interesting.
There's I've actually...
It's like an in-joke was created just for the titles,
It could just be for the purposes of the puddle.
Yeah.
It could also be that and this happens with kind of when an auteur leaves a movie or a TV show and someone else takes over, there is a tendency to try and put up a sign that says business as usual. So, it's like it's like when The West Wing stopped being written by Aaron Sorkin.
Right, yeah.
Probably the most Sorkin-esque episodes were written by the people who weren't actually Aaron Sorkin. And I think there's a little bit of that going on here. It's like Steven Spielberg is involved, he's the Tom
Don't
Skerritt
worry
of this.
about it. He's still here. Yeah.
But it might also be for the purposes of the puddle, because you can't just have one puddle, you got to have two. Because the idea is the T-Rex is advancing, so one puddle just wouldn't do it.
Well, my next note has to do with the actual title. I'm sure you have thoughts too, because you noted in the Lost World episode that the font is still the same.
Yeah.
Now, the font is the same essentially in this movie, but they have different colors. And I can't help but notice when you put Jurassic World in red with the black line in the center surrounded by silver, my note is it just looks funny. It looks like you're fucking it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I assume you meant Jurassic Park, not Jurassic World.
Did I say world? Okay, Jurassic Park.
It's all right.
Damn it.
I just wanted to make sure you weren't talking about movies I hadn't seen.
I just had 900 off-mic conversations with people that kept saying Jurassic World, and I kept saying, well, it's not Jurassic World, it's Jurassic Park. And look what they've done to me.
I know, yeah. They've... was this a kind of Scientology-style brainwashing?
Yeah.
But going back to that, I think with the puddle and with the change in logo, now that it's kind of like, the cat's away, the mice can play. It's like the series is allowing itself to be a bit more cheesy, a bit more populist. It's not as kind of concerned with artistry.
Yeah, and because we're not done. Because first you get Jurassic Park, and when the 3 slashes come for the 3, I thought to myself, well, they're promising a movie we don't really get, because now they're making it seem like a slasher movie, like a horror movie.
Yeah, although there are elements of a slasher.
Elements, but it's not.
The slashers are the slashers are somewhat prophetic. It's more of a slasher than the other 2 movies. And it's 90 minutes.
I'll give you that.
The length
yes.
The length of most slashers.
The length matches, for sure.
No, there are some scenes where I did think of slasher horror, but as a signpost for the movie, you're right, it doesn't quite add up.
It doesn't match, yeah.
It doesn't. But you get the first sign of the accelerated timetable that we're working to, when the Isla Sorna timestamp. Sorry, what do you call them? I always struggle to know what are they called. Time place markers.
Just kind of place marker, yeah. Not a time, but a place marker.
And then in red you see the word restricted, and I think it throbs, doesn't it? Like it's like throbbing red.
Yeah, I laughed out loud when I saw that red restricted because I didn't, the movie would make it seem as though it's for the people within the world of the movie. But outwardly, it seems like it's for us.
Oh, it is for us. I mean, it's the most efficient way of recapping the events of the last movie or how the last movie ended.
Mm-hmm.
So, essentially, it's like we've only got 90 minutes. We can't go
be fucking around with this.
It's restricted,
nonsense.
okay?
Yeah.
And we do have that. This is four years after Lost World, which itself was 4 years after Jurassic Park.
Sure.
That's a long period of time in cinema. And now we're in the bleached early 2000s in terms of the look of the movie. But also, one of my first directorial notes is that something about this filming style instantly reminds me of Young Indiana Jones. And most of those were directed by Joe Johnston, so maybe he leaves more of a stamp than you'd think.
Yeah, right.
Even though that itself is a Spielbergian property. And this movie begins essentially the same way that Lost World begins.
They're so similar.
With one kind of key inversion, which reflects what's changed since the beginning of the last movie, which is now people are going there for the dinosaurs, not in spite of the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
So
in the last movie, they didn't even really realize that dinosaurs could be there.
Yeah.
And here, it's a rich person wielding their power to get just even the glimpse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's it's another way of recapping what happened, because it's reminding us that humans know this is Dinosaur Island.
Yeah.
And, we've got to the stage where local merchants have commercialized it. So, when the parachute goes up, you see that it says Dinosaur, like SOAR. So there's clearly cottage industries built around.
Just kind of parasailing near the island. Yeah.
And that's the kind of sweet spot of this series, I think. The idea of the commercialization of prehistoric creatures.
Sure.
So it's interesting that we've kind of looped back to that idea.
Well, I think what's interesting about it is that, I mean, you noted it, I noticed it, but if you're not paying attention, you might not even notice what it says on that parachute,
Yeah. Although you do see it again. I mean, when they find it on the island.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not it's not hitting you over the over the head with it, even though
Yeah.
they do get hit over the head.
But that commercialism aspect that you're talking about is interesting to me. Yeah, I like that.
I think, you know, these movies, I like the meta movie quality
Mm-hmm.
of this series. The idea that it's about turning, you know, nature into entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of all the movies in some way kind of reflect on the you know, the marketization of the subject matter of the movie, which when the movies themselves are marketizations of that subject matter. So
Yeah,
there's a
right.
meta quality about it. Strongest in the first movie, but it pops up again here and there, and I think quite strongly in this movie.
Yeah. Plus, you have
There are,
you know,
there
you
are
have
lots
that.
of books written about what happened, which is interesting because, of course,
Yeah,
Jurassic Park is based on 2 books. So
yeah. Well, I also think we're kind of still sticking with that idea of class
yeah,
because clearly this is a rich man who's saying, "Hey, I'll give you a little extra to give it, keep us a little closer."
mm-hmm.
So he's kind of an asshole rich guy. But on top of that, you have relationship shit. I mean, we don't know this yet, but you're going to find out later that he's essentially not a stepdad, but a surrogate stepdad. I don't know that they're married yet.
No, they're not. I don't think they're married, but
I don't think they're married. But just that idea of a stepfather figure who wants to get the kid to like him.
yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And this, I go 2 ways on this. I wonder whether I would have liked the film slightly better if the reverse was true. If that was his real dad, and then William H. Macy was the stepfather.
Mm.
I wonder. I go back and forth on that because I generally like the kind of the reconciliation arc that happens with the 2 characters.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think that's
I think it would have been more interesting if he was a stepdad trying to win approval.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea because I think that one of the weakest parts of this movie has to do with. I mean, I alluded to it earlier. Spielberg does family stuff, I guess, better than anybody maybe can. Because the dynamic between the family in this movie feels so after school special to me.
Yeah.
That every time they go back to it in this movie, it feels like the weak link of this movie.
Interesting. I didn't necessarily feel that way. I felt it could have been more novel and interesting for sure. With a few cursory changes.
Oh, I think the tone of it is just all wrong. It hits me sideways in a way where I think it's not good. I think it's the weakest part of the movie.
It feels to me like low-hanging shtick, but I think you have the actors to pull it off, so that's probably what I'm...
That's the other thing that's weird is that I don't... you have good actors trying to do the best with what I consider to be kind of fairly shitty material. And you know what's interesting, too, is that one of the writers on this movie is Alexander Payne. And I just recently...
I've read the credits.
I just recently listened to him on a podcast talking about, those jobs that he took because he had to for money before election or, the things that kind of put him on the map. And
this was post-election or must have been concurrent.
Close to, yeah.
Yeah.
But I like he's one of the things he talked about was talking about being very proud about trying to make maybe a movie that was lesser than a little bit better through his writing.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you see his name, it takes you aback, and then you think about the representation of marriage in the movie, and you go, oh, okay, no, actually, that's totally something Alexander Payne would have his hand in.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like. Anyway, we haven't even got to that yet. After they get lost on the island, an actual lost world. We go back to Sam Neill and Laura Dern as Dr. Allen and Ellie.
And you like this?
I like this a lot.
I do too.
These two legacy. I mean, it's a bait and switch again because you get two legacy characters reintroduced, but only one of them is really going to be in the movie in any meaningful way.
Right.
It's it's never bad seeing Laura Dern, but
never. But I kind of what I like about it is I like the idea that life is more complicated than the platitudes that we get in a movie. Yeah, he saved some kids' lives in Jurassic Park. It doesn't mean that he's ready to be a father, which he wasn't ready to be in Jurassic Park. That was a sticking point in their relationship, and it seems like it played out in this to this moment, to the extent that they had broken up and she got married to somebody else and had kids. And I like that idea, you know?
I like that a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And it shows the kind of, like, both the changes and the continuities in their lives very efficiently without putting too fine a point on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nicely executed scene. And really well performed. I mean, you expect no less from those two actors together, but without telling us what happened in their relationship, we can kind of figure it all out.
Totally, yeah.
And that might be kind of Johnston pulling from 70s Spielberg, but it really works.
And I even like. Well, I even like the idea, even though it leads to what we've made fun of before in previous episodes about this idea of velociraptors are now fully formed characters with dialogue.
Yeah.
But I like this idea of their experience together on Jurassic Park leading to a different mode of his scientific life where he is studying something different and trying to figure things out.
That's
logical. I like that.
It crept up on me that in that moment they were tripling down on the intelligence myth that they've set up.
Yeah, totally.
The raptors, because it's such a lovely moment when he turns to her and says, "Do you remember the sounds they made?"
Yeah.
And they both get really excited. Like, the character moment is worthwhile, and it's only later do you realize that they're laying pipe for
the rest of this
walking, talking, living raptors.
But there's a second part to it, Tom, that I really like, which is the idea of he first brings it up to her, and she is the kind of genuine fear that still lives within her with her memories, I think is there in how Johnston shoots it and the way she performs it. And that part I really like. This idea of... You know, pretty soon Grant is gonna he's gonna say that no force on earth or heaven could get me on that island, which turns out to be bullshit. But with her, I totally believe it, even though she's never saying it.
Yeah, well, she'd rather call the military than go there herself. And
Totally.
Find out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you were saying about how complicated their relationship has got, but it shows that you can have complicated relationships between characters, specifically in sequels, without it turning into this bleak, dysfunctional...
Without it ever really being mentioned.
Hellscape.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
right.
You know, it's like the various Harrison Ford finding this beloved character at the bottom of the well every time we re-meet them. You don't need to go that far. You know, you can say, you know, relationships are complex and people change or people don't change. You can make all those points, but there's no sense of an animosity between the two of them, or that one of them walked out on the other and then the other became an alcoholic or something.
Yeah, right.
It could easily drift into, and it doesn't. It's just like she moved on in her life in one way, he moved on in another. They both clearly got regrets about what happened, but they can be in a room together and be functional human beings.
I like that. I really like it a lot. I think it.
Yeah. And he can spend time with her kid and not be like, you know,
why isn't this my kid?
Or, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's got no. He's just like it's more about him going back to the well of he can't relate to children, and it's still true. And that's as you said, and that's a really nice. That's also a really nice continuity.
Yeah, totally.
Like he doesn't need to have grown from that to
Mm-hmm.
develop as a character.
Completely.
And he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't really. His inability to relate with young people is basically still the story of this movie.
Yes, totally.
And he has those. This may be the last sequel lines, like talking about, I am the last of my breed.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you don't want to think too much about that line, because it's like, what, you think paleontology is not going to exist anymore? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
People have just discovered that dinosaurs exist, and you think you're going to get less work
Right.
as a dinosaur hunter?
It's funny too, because I also within their relationship, I think there's this aspect of, when we first met them, there was this romantic nature of being in Montana in the Badlands and
With the champagne.
digging up fossils and champagne, and we were saving that.
And weird Scotsmen.
We're
turning up.
together and we love each other. Yeah, yeah. With Ellie, I kind of like this notion of her coming to a point in her life where she thinks, listen, I love my work, I love what I do, but it's not enough. I want something else. And
yeah, it's nice that she's...
And
it's
him
nice that
saying,
she's writing, like...
why can't we be what we were? I mean, we were happy and not moving on. But all of it's unsaid. They're not having this long, drawn-out conversation. But I think it's playing on that level somewhere.
And neither of them have sacrificed their careers.
Right, yeah.
She's still writing in her she shed, and he's still working. He's still doing his dig. So again, you don't have to destroy characters to make them complicated.
Right. And he's doing his work to the extent that in the next scene we're going to see him giving his speech. And we've really kind of already talked about this in the previous episode, but
yeah,
it's great. It's a great written moment. It's done very well.
It's done very well. I mentioned that, does anyone have a question that doesn't relate to Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
They're all slowly putting their hands down, which I did not witness, which is a great sort of meta
fantastic.
Sequel comment.
Yeah.
I was not in the second movie. And that's telling the audience that as well. It's like, remember, it was Goldblum, not me.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
And then he has a great line where he says these aren't dinosaurs, they're genetically engineered theme park monsters.
I really like that. That was a great moment, that this idea that he doesn't even believe that everything that InGen did counts. They're not real dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's a great viewpoint moment where the viewpoint of the character is so clear in that moment, but also a great meta moment as well, because they're genetically engineered theme park monsters, both in and out of world.
Yes, right.
So it's a nice reminder that it's what's on screen and off screen match when it comes to the creation of the dinosaurs.
And then here's something that I want to bring up, because this happens fairly often in this movie, where something I like is punctuated by something I don't like. And this is a moment when he says, no force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
Yeah.
But Joe Johnston, several times in this movie, decides to end a moment like that with a slow fade. And I'm not liking those slow fades.
Is he trying to subvert your expectations because you expect a hard cut to him being on the island?
Maybe, but
I mean, it's not effective.
But it's slow enough that as an actor, I noticed that Sam Neill has to give him time to sort of keep smiling and nod his head.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get to punctuate it with what I think the character would feel, which is fucking nothing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I was there.
Yeah.
It seems like a nice idea, but it's terrible. And that's what I want to see on his face.
With a line like that, they set themselves. I mean, I wonder what they're going for, because it almost feels like they want to let the audience in on the joke that of how implausible the movie is. But
right, yeah,
I don't know. Would it be better if they just don't say anything? If we just keep quiet about that, Halloween 4 style, where we're like, these two people should be dead, but just
But let's move on.
Act as if they did. I don't know what's better, because you get it gets a chuckle. And they do it with Goldblum in the last movie as well.
Sure.
But I feel like they have to work harder to overcome the implausibility this way.
Yeah. Whereas
if you sort of keep that under the surface and under the radar and don't mention it.
Well, and we're not there yet because we're not pitching yet, but in thinking about how to pitch another sequel, I felt for them. I kept thinking, how the fuck do you get these people on an island? Because there's no reason for them to go.
Yeah. And, well, I guess this movie's answer is kidnapping.
Yeah.
But, which is as good as any, I suppose. So this is where we meet Billy
Brennan. And I kind of like this idea of... Because you could almost imagine Ellie being under Sam Neill's character of Dr. Helen Grant. You know what I mean? And then they find a love there.
Yeah.
And just even the very idea of Alan Grant hiring a male, like, I don't want to go through that again. To me is interesting, And that I think they've built this relationship and, they're, there's something there, but it's strictly professional, of course, But it seems like a choice Grant might have made based on what had happened prior. I like that idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't read that into the character, but that makes total sense. I always thought that this was... Every time I see this, I think the same thing. I think this was a bit of a wasted opportunity for this not to be a grown Tim. And the actor that they pick looks so much like he could be a grown Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a bit old, but it's Hollywood, so,
I think...
We could fudge it.
It seems to me that they're letting... What's the kid's name? Eric?
Oh, yeah, Eric. Yes, of course.
I think they're letting Eric be the surrogate Tim.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes it even more interesting. If there's like a rival for surrogate parental affection. But I don't know, every time I do it I keep expecting them to say, Tim, I haven't seen you in years since we're on the island, and it never happens, and I go, oh, but why did they pick a guy who looks so much like he could be a grown Tim? And he's in some ways also, he's a Malcolm surrogate as well. Or he's an Ellie surrogate, he's a Malcolm surrogate.
Sure, right.
He's this, this young handsome guy swooping in.
He's also maybe a surrogate computer guy. What's that guy in the first movie they launched that kind of shotgun shell into the ground? In a few years, we won't even need to dig these things up.
Yeah.
Because he's getting his computer image and... Because when we meet him, he's building that resonating chamber with the 3D printer.
It's a 3D printer. I mean,
and early on, 2001. I was astonished watching it.
I was struck by that as well.
Yeah.
I guess that the advance is that it becomes a mass market item, because if you think about the work that effects technology does, they must need some kind of version of a 3D printer. To make what they do happen. So it could be another instance where the world kind of catches up with what ILM are doing in their little
My first thing, because I thought it was interesting that doesn't Sam Neill say something about, we only have 3 months of money left, and Billy says 2 months. I like the idea that in 2001 he spent an entire month's worth of their money on one thing, because the first thing I thought was, man, in 2001 that thing must have cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
because it's a precursor. It's one of the first ones, right?
And I assume they just got it from ILM, like they said, that looks cool. Can we put it in the movie?
But I remember reading something in the IMDb notes about It's Real is one of the first ones. You literally
I'm sure it's real, yeah.
Take something and, do what it does.
They probably used it to make a tusk.
Yeah, I think it was different. I think it was, instead of building something, you'd put a block of something in and it would shave away and create it.
Okay. Is that not what 3D printers do now? They kind of come out of the...
Yeah, I think they kind of build...
Like in Star Trek 4. Yeah. The faces kind of come out of the goo.
Of course you go to Star Trek 4.
It's interesting that, given that... This is what I mean about having to work harder. He says nothing's going to get me back on the island. And then someone throws a bit of just the promise of money in his face. Like, he doesn't know that check's going to clear. That's the deciding factor. And then again, you think of the accelerated timetable. It's like, this should have been harder, but it's a 90-minute movie, so okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing is we already saw that once. That's what we saw in the first movie.
Yes, but there was a sense, I don't know, there was a sense that he was...
But there's a realism to it when you're doing that kind of work and you're kind of...
Well, there's a realism if he doesn't say nothing's going to get me on that island and then someone starts to write a check and he's already getting on the plane.
Well, you brought it up. I mean, we're about to meet, William H. Macy and his wife, Téa Leoni. Why don't we take a break and come back?
Yeah, let's... we'll be introduced to the fake versions of these characters.
Exactly. All right. We'll be right back right after this. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing Jurassic Park 3 / directed by Joe Johnston. A workmanlike director.
Yeah.
Well, so our heroes essentially are going to meet two scare quote rich people.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is William H. Macy is a good enough actor to make you forget that the character of Paul Kirby probably wouldn't be a good enough actor to pull off what he's doing so well. Right?
That's true. And it's interesting because in terms of the previous two movies, he's kind of both the Hammonds.
Yeah, right.
He's both Hammond and his nephew, but that turns out to be a false
ruse.
Perception.
Yeah.
It's a ruse. But it's interesting the things that he throws out as being to convince them that he's a rich person are things that rich people do now, like going and trying to space travel. He's basically pretending to be Elon Musk.
I love his line of, I can write all kinds of numbers on this check.
Yeah.
And we hard cut to the plane.
Technically not untrue.
Right.
I think if you asked him after the facts, he'd be like, I did say all kinds of numbers. 0 is a number.
There's lots of room for interpretation. Well, at least I was kind of reading into this on the IMDb notes about what Billy knew. Because some people think that Billy knew that William H. Macy was full of shit. I think that's nonsense.
He turned a blind eye, but that's different.
Yes. But I really like that moment in the airplane where he turns to John Deal and says, so how do you know the Kirbys?
Yeah.
And the lie he comes up with on the spot where he's sort of just looking straight forward, and then he looks at him and says, through our church.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen a bigger group of non-church looking people than these people?
Yeah.
It's great.
It is great. I think we've already talked about the hat sleep.
I mentioned it in the last
Indiana
episode.
Jones. And it's just, it's a nice nod.
It's a nice nod. Yeah.
The oeuvre of the man who created the series.
But nothing makes me laugh more than this dream and that fucking raptor.
Funniest thing in the movie.
It's so great.
It's the funniest. The best part of it is, I mean, obviously when the raptor says Alan.
Yes.
But obviously that's the best part. But the best part of it is in retrospect when you see what they actually do with the raptors in the movie. And you realize that's not far off the dream. This is basically what the movie is saying is happening in real life as well.
That's great.
But it's just the way that it opens its mouth and then Alan comes out. I mean, the Raptors are pure comedy, aren't they? They're effortless comedy with the Raptors.
They are,
always.
And I guess one of the things I like the most about it is there's a real dream logic to it.
Yeah, it's what's on his mind and his subconscious, right?
Yeah.
It's like this is what he's trying to prove about raptors.
Oh, so funny.
And he's going back to this island where he potentially, if things go wrong, he might end up facing a raptor again. It's really funny. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but it's really funny.
Right, and that's the thing that I wrestle with is I don't know if that's what they were trying to do.
Except the raptors are always funny.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this movie,
like since the first and the first movie as well. I think they're hilarious.
Do you?
The way they're opening doors and I think that
I look at that differently in the first movie. I like that idea.
Them opening a door with their claws.
Well, I like the idea of the humans poo-pooing it, because right before that happens, Ellie says, unless they figured out how to open doors, and then you see the door, that sort of sliding kind of, the long door knob kind of. I think that's funny.
I do too. And then we get a literal plane trip down memory lane where they fly over the dinosaurs, and he says, "My God, I'd forgotten."
Yeah.
And so we're trying to work in some nostalgia for scenes from the original movie, which is what Spielberg was talking about in that behind the scenes featurette. It's like that's the bind of making a sequel, is you have to make people nostalgic for the movie that they're not watching. You have to listen to the notes they're not playing.
Yes, right.
And this movie is doing this very deliberately, but I guess when it's the third movie, you have more liberty to loop back to the original and play the greatest hits a bit more.
Well, and
it's more effective as a wonder moment than what happens in Lost World, I think.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I also like about it is the the kind of cross necessities of characters, because Grant is just trying to point out dinosaurs, and William H. Macy keeps saying, "Do you see anything? Do you see anything?" Because he's not looking for dinosaurs,
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good way of cutting through the kind of melodrama.
And just sort of the I don't know, the weighty kind of portion of the narrative of their script,
Well, absolutely, you've got no choice but to do that.
Because you only got 90 minutes.
It's I guess I hadn't thought about it like that. It's a subversion of your expectations. You think you're going to linger on the dinosaurs,
right?
And then suddenly, and partly because this is a 90-minute movie, and partly because we've seen that scene twice, and now we need to subvert it. The interests of the plot kind of rear their head at that point.
Yeah.
It's just nice. I mean, dinosaurs from the air, that's a good way to experience digital effects.
I agree, yeah.
From a distance.
From a distance is good.
With them as kind of filler in the landscape, as opposed to the main attraction of the shot.
Yeah. And then there's this part of it because they land on the plane. I mean, they go for a lot more silly comedy in this movie.
Yeah, it's a bit goofy.
Yeah, than any of the other movies with the microphone and I mean, we're not there yet, but there's others, him getting out of the fuselage and back in after the roar, that kind of thing.
The cell phone in the dinosaur poop.
Yeah.
Say no more.
Say no more. But I like the idea of Alan Grant waking up and saying, please tell me we're not on this fucking island.
Yes. Well, I like the shot of William H. Macy as he punches him out, and we see him.
He goes, ooh.
Get knocked out. He's like, it's a good, exasperated bad guy face.
Yeah.
This is why this guy's good in Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah, exactly.
He can have all of that in one face.
But it's funny that, I mean, we're not going to know this until later, but, there's a child that's been on this fucking island for 8 weeks, which is the most ridiculous thing for me one of the most ridiculous things for me in this movie. Because...
No, after you've seen Camp Cretaceous.
Because the adults get on there and they're in trouble in 10 seconds. But the one thing I really do like is that the tough mercenaries with the big guns, they're both dead within a couple of minutes of being on this island. And that to me is pretty fucking funny. Especially because they're actors we know.
Yeah.
That subverts my expectation. I expect them to last a little while.
Except one of them is African American, so that means he's gone.
Yeah,
I think they only killed.
He's Bruce A. Young, Tom, and that guy's in fucking An Innocent Man.
And,
and I get to bring up that movie.
I haven't. Is that the sequel to An Innocent
time.
Man? Is that the sequel? Fucking An Innocent Man?
No, but
yeah, I saw him in Basic Instinct not 3 days ago.
There you go. You watched that 3 days ago, did you?
I did.
I just watched it maybe a month ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, but it is, they sort of, you can see that they're like, we can't kill the black guy first because of everything that has been written about that. So John Deal has to go first, but then they very quickly, kind of they have to, Cooper is a ringer to offset the racist damage done by killing the black guy first. But it's like a fun 1-2 blow, and the accelerated timetable is back because this is someone has been killed by a dinosaur earlier than in any of the other movies. And obviously you see the workings of the accelerated timetable, but in terms of the stakes of the movie, there's also a sense to try and up the ante so it feels more dangerous, like anyone could die at any point. All these, as you say, all of these are relatively known faces, so that these people can just be knocked off means, it's not just going to be Newman this time.
Yeah, right. Well, and I also like, they do something that I think
Newman and the lawyer.
There's this happens a lot in this particular movie where something good happens, something bad happens, because when John Deal gets it, when he's, I really like the moment where he runs out onto the runway and he's in the plane's way saying, please stop. And he's almost saying it to himself because of how scared he is.
I think it's Jeter's reaction that's the best. He's like, he knows I can't stop the plane.
Exactly, yeah. And when he actually gets chomped,
he knows what time we eat.
Right as they're taking off and his blood gets on the windows, that's a really good moment.
Yeah, it's a slasher moment.
But then right after that, I have a note that says, hey, if you can't afford a good plane crash, don't linger on the plane that's stuck in the trees.
Well, the makers of this movie would disagree. They did it all practically. They had the actors. They built the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They had the actors in the plane.
Well, but that's afterwards. I don't know about.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean like the digital plane?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because it's going through the trees and then it kind of.
Yeah.
It kind of.
But what they do practically on the ground makes up for that.
Yeah, totally.
And they were doing it all, and they put the actors in there. There's only like a couple of.
They put those actors in danger doing the shit they did. Yeah. We already talked about in the last episode about that hydraulic.
Yeah.
Spinosaur, but that thing was serious. It killed an actual T-Rex model.
That's right.
Yeah.
But to me, it's more the fatigue of, this series thinks that we want to watch people nearly die in a series of long vehicles. And this is just another in the long line of long vehicles.
Right.
But this is much more spectacular than the RV scene from Lost World.
I agree.
The nature of the digital effects have changed. I think they care less about making the dinosaurs look like real dinosaurs. And you'd think that would be a bad thing, but it liberates them a little bit. So they can focus more on making the animatronics naturalistic.
Yeah.
But the digital is just like how we get from A to B, right?
Yeah.
That's how the animatronic gets from one place to another.
Yeah, totally.
And it doesn't have to look great while it's moving.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also of two minds because literally the first moment when we see the Spinosaur, when that plane hits the tree and stops and it's kind of slapping, it's closing its jaws. Because of that elongated snout, my first thought is, oh, that looks weird and funny. And I'm not sure they realize that. But no, I think it's just literally the angle that Joe Johnston chooses. Once they get out of that, it looks tremendous. It looks incredible.
It looks stunning. And they, you're gonna get a new dinosaur because they hear it and one of them says T-Rex and he goes, sounds bigger. I don't really know what sounds bigger means, but you get the idea. Yes. They're going to give you they're going to one-up it's a one-uposaurus that we're going to get.
And what's funny is, I guess that's not true. I was going to say that the entire, you would think in this series that they would go progressively bigger. But they don't. They go from a T-Rex to two T-Rexes to the new dinosaur to the dinosaur once we get to World, this new thing they've created.
It's a numbers game, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's more rather than bigger. Because, later on in this movie we'll have a shot where Sam Neill is surrounded by 3 raptors, which is again like the scene with the 2 T-Rexes. It's sort of an emblem of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not it's kind of like an in-movie poster for the movie. And something I really loved was they spend all this time with the Spinosaurus, essentially telling you that you're not going to get the T-Rex, and then the T-Rex kind of pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah, right.
And again, I thought it was like a slasher moment almost, like a kind of a...
Well, and it's funny because
like a final kill kind of
thing. We also, we talked in the last episode about the Book of the Lost World saying, kind of rearranging our idea of T-Rexes, that it's all based on movement, so you have to stay still. And they just ignored that. But I love that the way they keep it going in this movie when he says, nobody move a muscle, and they all run away.
Triple down. It's a triple down.
Triple down on it. Yeah, exactly. And his reaction.
Which I respect.
His reaction is great to it. So
commit to the bit.
It's a great, exactly. It's a bit, but it's a bit that works, and the joke is great. It does work.
Yeah. And it's the inversion of the delayed entrance last time, because the build-up to the T-Rex entrance last time is so melodramatic. And I like this idea that they flip that on its head and he pops up when you least expect it.
Yeah, right.
It's a nice choice.
Well, and also because you have that aspect of, we're on the Spinosaurus, so we have a new dinosaur. There's sort of that idea of maybe it's all going to be new friends, new dinosaurs,
It's like Batman. It's like the Batman villains, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Like, how many can you cram into one movie?
So when the T-Rex comes back, you think, hey, I know that one. That's my old friend.
That's exactly. But, I never say no to a dinosaur fight. It's a monster movie classic.
I mean, it's Hammer horror. It's his version of Hammer horror in this moment, and it works. It's really great. Mm-hmm. Plus, as we've already mentioned several times, that Spinosaurus bit that T-Rex and actually killed the puppet. I think they had actually planned to bring the T-Rex back, and they were like, "Well, we can't do that now. It's gone. We killed it."
Yeah, I think they said that they knew something was going to get broken. when they built the Spinosaurus, and I think they were just grateful that it was another puppet, not
a person.
William H. Macy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's all these, because it's so weird. Like, the history of cinema can be told with dinosaurs, right? You've got Gertie the Dinosaur, is the first ever animated movie, and then King Kong has a dinosaur fight, which showcases Ray Harryhausen's stop motion effects for the first time. And I think just going, dinosaur on dinosaur like this is a tribute to that history. Like, this is the final, this is like the last word on that. And it it looks incredible. It does. It's a beautiful piece of choreography. And this is where I guess you're falling less in love with the movie, because all of the divorced couple shtick.
Yeah, it's not good.
Not a fan. It's like it's sort of like it's playing all the Spielbergian notes, but it's not Spielberg.
Exactly. And it really struck me watching it this time because of our conversation about his insistence in The Lost World to bring Malcolm's child in, and then with that family at the end in San Diego, even in the most minute moments of that movie, he can still bring in this family dynamic where it's all clearly drawn. You all know there. And I'm not saying this isn't clearly drawn, but it's
too clearly drawn. It's too clearly drawn.
Yes, you got it right. You got it exactly right. Yeah.
I don't mind it at all.
Really? It doesn't smack you in the face of after school special?
No, I like these two actors. It's tender, it's genuine. I like it.
I see them doing their best work possible with it.
Yeah.
But it feels off the mark and out of place for me.
It certainly is a moment where you are grateful that these movies are so well cast. Mm-hmm. Because I think without it, what you're saying would be absolutely true. But I think they can sell it, Something I really did like, and this is where it feels like very contemporary for 2001, when they're watching the footage of the crash on the camcorder viewfinder.
Yeah, right.
It's like the influence of found footage horror. Your Blair Witch Project is like 2 years before.
I thought the same thing. It's funny, yeah.
Someone involved in this movie is cottoning on to the idea that this is going to be the future of digital cinema for a while. Mm-hmm. So, and it's done really well. Also, it's like it's a really good mock-up of.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, right.
I don't know. It's like the idea that. I guess I suppose it's no surprise that people making these movies are at the cutting edge of digital cinema, but they're recognizing that part of that is going to be these smaller found footage genre films, which, you know, is the next 20 years of horror movies.
Yeah. And I forgot that
really.
we were going to see a parachute corpse.
Skeleton stepdad.
Yeah, totally forgot about that.
And, you know, I mean this with no disrespect, but good jump scare.
Yeah.
I know I normally say that about sequels that are failing, but in this case, when it's the third in the series, anything that surprises you counts for double.
Mm-hmm.
It's like away goals in European soccer competitions. It counts for double. Because, you know, if the third movie in the series, by the third movie in the series, so much is played out. If they do anything that's even mildly surprising, it reads bigger.
It reads, yeah, totally.
It's like, I'm not expecting Weekend at Bernie's guy, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, I assumed that, you know, if he was dead, which he might be, he would have been torn to pieces, not just kind of sitting there in his parachute for 8 weeks.
Because he looks too far gone to be.
I guess he was pecked away at.
That much of a skeleton in 8 weeks. So what I like about it is the idea of, you know, the bird, you know, the pterodactyls and the pteranodons just kind of coming down and getting at them, and maybe whatever other critters, but.
And I guess it's interesting because the movie's holding back on the pteranodons. Yeah, there's no other way that boat could have been taken out.
Exactly, right. But
so we know
that's
it's
the one
coming,
thing that's missing in this movie, because they're going to tell us later that they only got out later in this story.
Yes.
But there are inconsistencies, because how is he still up in his parachute? How did the boat people die unless they were by flying creatures? That doesn't really make sense, but...
And I don't know. Yeah,
but I don't really give a shit. This movie is entertaining me enough that I don't care.
No, I don't mind that Tyranna retcon at all. But I just think it's interesting that you know, the end of the last movie, they were basically left on the cutting room floor in the last movie, except for a brief appearance,
right,
which seems to be a teaser for this movie. And the first thing you see is clearly the work of flying dinosaurs.
Yes,
and
exactly.
yet it's only in the last act of the movie that we actually see them.
Yeah.
So they're kind of they're playing us a little bit here.
And well, we're not. I think we're there because they see that corpse and Téa Leoni freaks out and walks away, but then they find the raptor eggs.
Yeah.
And what I really did like was the continuity, because they find those raptor eggs and then they kind of walk a little ways away, and the building that we clearly saw in the last movie is close by. And so all of that feels like their territory, and I really liked that continuity. It's not the tall grass.
Yeah, it's helpful.
But it's their territory, and I really noticed that and dug that in this movie.
The two sequels work better as a pairing than
the first movie, yeah, totally.
First and second, or even the first and the third.
Because when they walk down into that courtyard, it's like you can see that truck that Malcolm was hiding in.
Yeah.
You know, and you see the rooms that they get into. It's really cool. But they go into different rooms. This is a really cool thing where they're walking, you know, it's like Aliens.
There's a lot of aliens in here.
Where they have when they have the face hugger kind of tubes with liquid. But I love that moment of Téa Leoni kind of looking at that raptor, and when it finally blinks.
Classic comedy again from the Raptors.
So good.
Well, first of all, this is another moment where the movie doesn't tell you straight up, but there's no other way it can go down. Billy steals an egg. Right? We don't see him stealing an egg, but we know he stole an egg.
But it felt like a transparent movie in that moment, didn't it? Because you know exactly what he did.
Yeah, but you don't see it, and
you don't have to
without
see it.
Seeing him do it, when they leave the scene, Billy stole an egg.
Clearly. Yes.
And then there's the vending machine gag, which you see coming a mile away.
Yeah,
where he's
sure.
trying to put quarters in. But I like...
I think I got a dime here and I got a nickel. What are you guys?
But it's good because it's where we are in relation to the characters. We're starting to warm towards William H. Macy and we're starting to turn against Billy. So it's a nice shift in the character dynamic.
And going back to sort of the slasher element, there's a really great moment when they're in the courtyard of that area or something. There's a moment where a raptor
yes.
sprints by in the background, which is fantastic.
Just to add to that, my next note is sneaky Michael Myers raptors.
Yeah.
Like clear because when they pretend to be a test tube raptor to fake out Tia Leone, it's like clearly in developing their intelligence they've also gained a sense of humor because it's not just kind of intelligent animal behavior to pretend. It's like the classic pretending to be a dummy to get away in a movie
or pretending to be dead. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic and it's funny and it the animatronics are so good. They almost like you can see the humor and intelligence of the creature on the faces. And I'm sure that's just an illusion. But it's like you feel the intentionality of what they're doing through the animatronics.
The raptors look so good in this movie.
I mean, they're way too personified because they're basically talking to each other.
Totally.
Which is the problem with upping the ante on the monsters every time. If you go along... I mean, I dread to think, having not seen the first two Jurassic World movies, I dread to think, they'll be in armchairs smoking pipes and reading Wittgenstein or something.
I love that you haven't seen the first two, but saw the last one.
Well, by that point, I'd had a child, and he wanted to see it. So
that's great.
I keep coming into franchises that begin with Chris Pratt pissed off, and it pisses me off to watch him pissed off. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Jurassic World Dominion or whatever it was. I was like, why is Chris Pratt so pissed off? And they were like, oh, if I'd seen the other movies, I probably would know. Why do I keep finding him at this low point? I think the digital effects really get away from them in this herd stampede.
Yes, you're right.
See.
Totally.
I mean, it's just like almost to the point where you feel like they just let it go.
They're like, listen, we've spent money on other things. This is what it is.
But speaking of good optical effects, the upside down swinging raptor snatch is great. That kind of reverse upside down shot.
You mean when Tia Leone falls over the tree? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's basic, but a good optical effect.
And I kind of like the moment where Udesky, they set the Udesky trap. When they kind of claw Michael Jeter.
I don't know what's the Udesky trap?
They claw Michael Jeter and everybody thinks he's dead.
Oh.
And then they realize he's not dead and they start to go back down. It's right before she falls over the tree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the idea, that they had set a trap for them to go down and help their friend, and they were going to jump out and get them. It's great. Come on.
They say they're calling for help. It's so ridiculous. But Eric in his superhero way, saves the day.
This is the moment where, when I saw it in the theater, the movie had kind of lost me because I thought,
it had lost world view.
Smoke bombs and like,
I mean, have you seen Camp Cretaceous?
No.
This is basically the building blocks of Camp Cretaceous. The children, children who were on like an away camp get trapped on the island when the shit goes down in Jurassic World, and they're left on the island.
This is my problem with these two sequels, though. My problem with these two sequels is that danger and terrible things only happen at the story's convenience. Sarah has no problem on this island of the Lost World for like 900 years. And then when her boyfriend and an entire team of people with guns show up, everything goes wrong.
Well, that tends to happen when you bring a bunch of people and guns to a...
I guess, but...
to a wildlife refuge.
I can placate that one better than I can this because... You know, they had the equipment, they had the truck, she has some know-how, she has this, she has some food, she, you know, like she's prepared. This kid just like falling on an island 8 weeks ago and then being able to collect dinosaur piss and find shelter and get food and not get eaten by dinosaurs and then save somebody's life in the process. Like, I just laughed out loud in the theater, and the movie kind of lost me in the moment. Now I can say I still think it's ridiculous, but I put it aside and I go on with the movie.
They want a Spielberg kid, right?
They're desperate for it. You're right, yeah.
They want Christian Bale from Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun, right.
But it's more like it's more like Castaway, to be perfectly honest, but it's a bit more like Lord of the Flies. And this idea, I'm sure this was the inspiration for Camp Cretaceous. And I like that, and it is that superhero conversion of the kids, which
right.
When it's done over the course of a TV series, it's a bit more effective. It is kind of ridiculous, just sort of. But then, you know, there's that if you'd have seen those 8 weeks, it could have happened incrementally. But
it could have,
yeah.
But we only got 90 minutes in this movie.
Camp Cretaceous is literally 8 episodes a season, so and in that time, one of the characters goes from, like, you know, this nerd to Jungle Man. Mm-hmm. So.
All right, well, we're about to move on. Why don't we take another break and we'll come back?
Yeah, great scene coming up. Great character scene with Dr. Grant coming up, I think.
With talking to the kid, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Plus, I guess my question for you, matte painting or computer-generated painting?
Of?
When they're on the side of the cliff together. They see the boat?
Ooh. Well, there is such a thing as a digital matte painting.
Yeah, that's what.
So.
I got so excited, like I thought it was a matte painting.
No,
and I think it's digital, and then I got sad.
Well, it's still a matte painting. It's just done with digital technology.
All right. Well, we'll discuss it further when we get back. Right after this, everybody.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe 2 craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here finishing up with Jurassic Park 3. Directed by Joe Johnston.
10 minutes left in the movie.
Yes. We're going to describe so much exciting stuff, and then we're going to say, and then the movie just ends.
And then and then Poochie had to go back to his planet.
Totally. Well, on our way out, you were saying you love this conversation between Grant and the kid, and I agree with you.
It's great writing about writing.
Yeah.
Firstly, the revelation, and I gotta say, representation aside, I think this is the best of the bunch when it comes to the kid actors.
I agree with you. Yeah, you're right.
In these movies. Not in it. I think they're able to do like a sincere dramatic scene here with this kid, and they're not able to do that in any.
But what I like is, from the moment we meet this kid when he does his Rambo saving moment till the end of the movie, he's really grounded as a character. Like, I get him completely, He is, yeah. And I like the idea of this kid. I mean, a part of me always wonders, like, has every kid we ever meet in the world read Grant's book? How many kids, But
at least, yeah. No,
I mean, I put that aside, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's fine. It's fine that 2 kids in the world are into dinosaurs enough that they've read Grant's book.
Well, even more so with this kid, because
he's read Malcolm's book.
Well, he's read books before and after he was at Jurassic Park, and he's able to gauge how Alan has changed, how Jurassic Park changed him through his writing. Yeah,
very cool.
I love that device. It's great. I like the first book. He used to like dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. I think that's terrific. And
I also like the moment where he says he asked him, "Did you read Ian Malcolm's book?" And he goes, "Yeah."
It's the best moment in the movie.
Kind of got the sense he was full of himself.
It's because like that dramatic tension was in the original movie, and I love that they call back to that.
Yes.
But on a meta level, it's also like he was the star of the last sequel, and now. Now I'm the star of this sequel, and there's a bit of a rivalry going on there too between the actors.
Sure.
For the soul of the series, but it's happening in world as well, and it was genuine because it was always there between Malcolm and
Grant. Right.
From day one, so it doesn't feel like it's added on. In sequels when characters talk about how they felt about each other, you go, there's no evidence for that. You're inventing this dynamic now.
This disdain is
totally
made up.
Organic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but this is totally organic. So I think it's a really clever scene in a lot of different ways. So I'm glad it's in there.
I agree. And then of course our family finds each other.
Yeah, there's a nice little inversion here where they run to the wire fence, and the audience memory of what happened to Tim in the original movie is playing on your mind. Like, is he gonna get electrocuted and bounced off the fence? And it's nice that it subverts that expectation, but there's that moment of tension just as he does it, which is a really good thing to do in a sequel when you can play off the memory of something from an earlier film, but surprise the viewer as well. I think it's really good. Dinosaur with a ringtone, maybe a little much.
I mean, I get it. Yeah. Now is
one of the cheesier elements of this film?
It's one of the cheesier.
Not exactly a timeless moment.
Moments. Is the fence the moment where? Because there's
they start hearing the ringtone. Oh, go on. Yeah.
But they hear it before. They hear it first, right? There is a moment with the Spinosaurus that I like when they turn around and it's just there.
Yeah,
I like that moment.
Yeah, it's good. This movie's good like that. There's a lot of sense of dinosaurs are just bystanders on this island. They're just kind of like meandering around. There's a moment later with
being animals.
Not that much later.
Yeah.
There's a moment, I was going to say later, probably not that much later, whereas a T-Rex just kind of just comes in, looks around, and then leaves. Like a nosy neighbor.
What y'all doing in here? Everybody
it's,
good?
It's kind of, there's a sort of odd realism about that the rest of the Jurassic Park movies don't have. Mm-hmm. But I think it is just because it's like, we can't get into this now.
But here's the moment, because mostly the family dynamic has not worked for me in this film, but this moment does work for me because
which moment?
Like
the meeting of the
the meeting of them, because there's this idea to me of the improbable became probable. It's a needle in a haystack. You're looking for a kid on an island. He's been there for 8 weeks. He probably should be dead, but he's not. And then all of a sudden one thing happens and he's yelling mom, dad, and then they cut to William H. Macy, who hears his child's voice. And I like that idea of, oh my God, the miracle has happened, and when they come together, they're separated by a fence.
Definitely.
And then, of course,
it's a really good moment.
You start hearing ringtones, and the Spinosaurus is chasing. But I like that they start just running away and then end up just finding a hole in the fence. I like,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when moments are dire, you need some luck, and I like that this movie just kind of lets those things happen without paying a lot of attention to it.
Well, you don't need luck when you've got uninterested dinosaurs.
Right.
They lose interest really fast. And then this is where the bag comes into play.
Yes.
The bag of eggs.
But
Billy asks for it like it's Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
Yeah, right.
At the end of 7. And he's sort of, I mean, again, we're on an accelerated timetable, so I can't complain too much. But he's changed a lot in a very short period of time.
Yeah, but there's a part of me that really likes this moment because I like the idea. I feel like a normal movie would keep this a secret longer. And it would become
it was
more
never a secret.
Yeah, it was never a secret to us, the audience, ever. And so I like that the movie cops to it quicker than a movie normally would. And I like that the character admits his failing quicker than he would normally would. Because it speaks to him as a person.
That's the benefit.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of an accelerated timetable.
I like the idea of him saying, why don't you let me carry the bag? No, I'm fine. And he kind of ignores him at first. We got to find a way past this fence. And then he says, no, really, you should give me that bag. And just the idea of how guilty, you could see that he felt guilty about it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come up until later, but Grant's response to it and what he says to him. I also like the idea of him punishing him in a way verbally that he might not literally mean, but it's because he's pissed off in the moment. And he's going to recognize it later.
Well, yeah.
As a step too far. Anyway, we'll get there when we get there. But to me, it all rings...
It's 2 minutes away.
Yeah. You're right. It is.
No, I know what you're saying, and I guess it's a shortcut, but it's reminds me of the sort of Fred C. Dobbs from Treasure of the Sierra Madre, the way that the gold changes him into this maniac. It's kind of the same happening here. So
quite quickly.
It's just a device that movies use.
Yeah.
And the shorter the movie, the more hastily the device is employed, I guess. And then the rickety bridge, which, if you need Joe Johnston, the quintessential Spielbergian protege, playing tribute to not only his film mentor, but what his film mentor has done in sequels.
Yes, right.
And here's where we get the pteranodons.
Yes.
It's a birdcage.
But we don't... I mean, I feel like we as the audience know that, no matter how much smog we put into the area.
You're just waiting for them.
But I like when the shot comes. I like that moment.
Yeah. And the baby birds in the nest, again, fabulous animatronics.
Yeah, they're great.
And the theme of parents and children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the one of the thematic cornerstones of the series. Is the
and I think they're smart.
I think it's from children.
The devices are good. It make Grant almost falls down, so we're gonna take this one at a time. He goes across the whatever. We'll call it a bridge. He goes across the bridge.
Yeah.
But he's walking into smog, so you can't really see him. You hear him say, "Come on." I like the idea of the mom turning around and saying, "Okay, Billy, I'm going to just be gone for a minute, and then I'll call you." It's like, "Mom, I've been on this island for 8 fucking weeks. You think I can't?"
It would be funny if she said that to Billy. Of all people. I believe it's Eric she says that to. It would be good if she says that.
Oh, you're right. I said Billy. Eric.
But that would be funny if he's like, I'm 21. I can...
Billy just seems like such a little kid's name.
He does. It does, and he seems like an overgrown kid, which is why I wish he was grown Tim.
Yeah.
But his Billy's redemption arc kind of happens in this one scene, basically. It's like he recognizes what he's done wrong, and now he has to make up for it.
And now he must kill himself for it.
And now he must kill himself after, as you said, Grant tells him that he's as bad as the people who built this place.
You're right. Yeah, I alluded to it, but that's the line.
Yeah, that's the line. Unfortunately, right after they think Billy died, and this is classic late Spielberg or Spielberg-esque movie making, no one who should die dies.
I know.
This is the precedent the War of the Worlds set.
Here's the thing that surprised me, though. Fuck, what's that actor's name?
Although that is later than this movie, of course.
Billy is... Who's he played by? Alessandro Nivola. It literally was just him saying, "No, I don't want to die. I don't think I should." Like, he was planned... It was planned for him to die. And apparently the actor just said, "No, I don't think I should." But that gives you a moment as an audience member where you say, "Why the fuck is that guy alive? And how did they find him?" You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's depressing that that's how it came about.
Yeah, like, don't listen to the actor. Never listen to the actor. Yeah. And I'm an actor.
That's why I say don't listen. I know what shit we talk.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, there is a close up on Pteranodon facial expression in the scene, which making a facial expression that can only be described as "what you talking about, Willis."
Is it when Grant kicks him in the face?
Remember this moment? He kind of like it turns its head, and it's kind of like its kind of mouth is doing like a underbite thing, and it's like you're abusing digital technologies to make all these dinosaurs like Jar Jar like in their expressions.
I don't remember clocking something that bad, because for the most part, I remember.
I'm not saying it's bad. It just is curious.
I just remember thinking, for the most part, how good they look.
Yeah, they look great.
Especially when they're close up. You know, when they're... Yeah. I mean, I think it's weird that they're kind of waddling down the walkway towards Grant and the other two, but...
This is a full-on... The weird part is it's a full-on reaction shot of the... Which, it was a weird choice. But again, it goes with the anthropomorphizing that we see throughout these movies.
Yeah.
And then when they get on the boat and they think Billy's dead, or, you know, in the original draft of the script he is,
yeah,
Eric and Alan have a conversation, which is, again, really
I like
smart.
That conversation. Like says, it's really good.
They sort of, you know, he sort of says that I understand why he did what he did, because he practices a dead science, so anything that makes him feel alive in that is going to kind of mean more to him. He's going to try and grab it.
I also just like Grant acknowledging, I like the idea of a character saying, you know what, the last thing I said to him was the worst thing. Like, he's just a young kid. Like, he just,
Yeah. The problem is, that wasn't the last thing he said to him.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
The last thing he said to him was, Billy, no! Which, if the kid had corrected him, he would have gone, it's not that bad. At least I was trying to stop him from killing himself. I take it back. I don't blame myself.
I'm fine. I'm the best person on this boat, frankly.
It's one of those moments where it's like, just turn back the page of the script and you'll see that it is not the last thing you said.
Yeah. So you were talking about, earlier in this podcast, we're talking about the moment where the plane's flying over the dinosaurs, and that's supposed to be the moment, like
the wonder moment. Yeah.
The wonder moment. But we have a second wonder moment.
We have a second one here, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, and again, that's the plane trip down memory lane. This is the boat trip down memory lane. Because they drift along this lazy river.
The lazy river, exactly. And you know what
there's the two dinosaurs, one from each of the previous movies.
From the previous movie.
Straight ahead of them, like it's a zoo exhibit.
But I guess what occurred to me in the moment was, the thing I thought of was they really wasted that moment, because you have the possibility of these other characters who are there for the first time. They've been in nothing but danger. And then they get to have the moment of awe.
Yeah.
And if they were in rapture with that moment and they look over at Grant, who's disinterested, because been there, done that.
He's filing his nails.
Yeah, like you could have had that, you really could have said something. And again, if you did it as deftly as the other things that they're doing in this movie, in particular moments, like Ellie with Grant.
Yes.
You don't say it out loud, but maybe you have a moment where Grant recognizes that the awe doesn't impress him anymore, because he thinks of them as not animatronic, but they thinks of them as theme park monsters, and that they don't really count.
Yeah. It's where the intense pacing harms the movie a little bit, I think.
Right.
They don't take a moment to smell the roses because they literally can't.
Yeah, but for me in the moment,
of course.
I was like, 30 seconds. Come on, like, give yourself a moment.
Yeah. So they get a satellite phone out of the dinosaur poop.
Right. Because they must.
I'm glad it was a spam call. I liked that it was a robocall. I thought that was a nice.
That was funny.
The only thing that would have made it better if it was Homer Simpson's Happy Dude. But then we get this T-Rex fake out moment. The dinosaur just comes up to him like, you know the drill. Stand still. And then it does. It just literally goes away. Look. It's like, hey, you kids, what are you doing on my lawn?
The dinosaur's like the two of us.
Yeah. And then he calls Ellie, or he tries to call Ellie and gets the kid. I'm really glad this plays back in, right? I like that.
I do too, and I actually think it's in general, because it's within a set piece, I like the way the phone plays out. I like that he drops the phone. I like that they get into the cage. I like that because he's forgotten. I like when
it really does disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, he just happens to see the phone, and he's like, the phone. That's right, the phone. And when it comes sliding back to him, it's not a huge thing. He actually can just grab it and pick it up and talk. But he's blocked by Ellie not really being able to hear him very well. Because he's being attacked by a Spinosaurus.
Not just that, but there's more obstacles. You've got the kid who gets distracted by Barney the dinosaur, which I think is
pretty
again
funny.
A great meta moment.
Pretty
it's
funny.
Like This is what Jurassic Park has led to.
Yeah.
Right? Is Barney the dinosaur. And now it's a narrative obstacle in a Jurassic Park film.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. Barney the dinosaur will return in my credit check.
Very good.
But it's interesting. I like that we're not just seeing her for nostalgia. She plays some part in the plot of the movie.
Yeah,
And I feel like this is what they were trying to do with Richard Attenborough's Hammond, but they never really...
No, they never got there.
It still felt like a cameo.
That's why this movie's
like
better.
In these terms, yeah. I don't think there's much difference between these two movies at all.
They're not far off. I think you're right. I think it's pretty close. I just prefer this one.
And I got to say that anything you see that's CGI when it's night and clouds surrounding it, it automatically goes up a level of representation, and that's not a dig at all. I just think
I agree.
Whenever CGI works, it's about the cinematography around it, not the actual effect itself.
Well, not putting the CGI aside, the actual puppetry, the spines coming up out of the water, kind of Jaws style.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about this Spinosaurus attack to me is like top notch. It's really well done.
It's interesting. Like the animatronics kind of came on faster than the digital technology, which wasn't the discourse at the time at all. It was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Because one was new and one wasn't, but what they were doing with animatronics was more interesting than what they were doing with digital technology. Yes, aesthetically, I think. Well, we both think. I'll speak for you and say
that's fine.
In this case,
it's fine.
No,
You're
in
good.
this case, I'll be your proxy. I don't mind being your proxy here. There's a bit of weird filming here where Macy comes back. You think he's dead, and he comes out of the water, and they're going for some kind of like a spatial confusion gag, but it doesn't really work in execution.
No, yeah.
It's so clear he's behind them, and the movie wants you to think that he's not behind them. So something happened in the editing there where they made it. They did it too well. They made it too clear the spatial relations between the characters. But the point was that you weren't supposed to know that as the viewer.
Yes, right.
It's a really strange moment.
And not just that, but the dialogue seems only for movies.
I like movies.
The idea of the character saying, "I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah. Yes, I agree, yeah.
It's not a great line. It's one of those things where...
He should have just said hi or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
He should have just come out of the water and said, I got 3 nickels. I found some more.
Yeah, it's better if he just says, "What? I'm right here,"
like Willie. I'm right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a theme of kind of rebuilding broken relationships through facing down dinosaurs. I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but that's what these movies are about, essentially. Because, Grant says that, when he tells Eric who he's calling, he says, I don't think I ever told her how much she meant to me.
Yeah.
Which is a really sweet moment, but
it is.
You can see the idea is that through this fantastical conflict with dinosaurs, these people reintegrate as their relationships with people. That's the kind of the outcome, the dramatic outcome of the movie.
Sure.
Oh yeah, this is the most aliens part of the movie. I think you're right about the test tube bit. Definitely. But when the mother raptor is smelling Tia Leone,
so would
pure
they
aliens?
Yeah, because
game recognizes game.
Are you even watching the Fast and Furious series? How do you have that
That's
quote
not,
at
that
your
phrase
fingertips?
is not singular to Fast and Furious. I am sorry. That phrase existed outside the world of the Fast and the Furious.
Fine.
They did not invent game recognizes game.
But they'll make it great. We'll be there one day, sir.
Although I kind of, the logic of it makes me go both ways, because I love that they're whispering as well, as if that makes a fucking difference.
Yeah,
but
right.
Alan also says, he thinks you're trying to steal his eggs. And so I'm thinking, oh, because she's the mother. But then I think, if they know it's a mother, why would they think the mother was stealing the egg?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, right.
It doesn't make sense, really, does it? So they just want to have that, get away from her, you bitch, kind of moment. Is what they want.
I know, but it's like, get away from her, that bitch, turns into, give me the eggs.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as dramatic,
it's not the same.
Yeah.
At all. But I think they kind of, they want to add that James Cameron dimension to it.
And I forgot to mention this, but when we see that resonating chamber being made by the 3D printer, of course you think, well, this will be the end of the movie. Will it not?
Yeah, they had to invent a piece of technology that didn't exist in order to make the storyline happen.
Yeah.
I love the fact that these raptors, basically, we've had 3 movies building up how intelligent they are, only for them to be fooled by the cheapest ruse in the book. The fucking bird call.
Yes, exactly.
The bird watcher's bird call. I mean, they might as well have had someone tapping them on the wrong shoulder for all that it matters.
You know what's funny to me? Like, one of the things that occurred to me was if they only put 2 raptors into the end, I would almost buy it more because they have to pick it up with their mouth. So if they decided to just pick up those eggs with their mouth and fuck off so that they had enough time to get to the beach, I'd buy that more than them.
They stand, they look at each other, they say, ready? And then they leave. This one is Alan! And then they leave. It's ridiculous. I mean, it is. There's literally no reason why they wouldn't leave without killing all these people.
No, yeah. For everything that, and then not just in this movie, but for everything we've seen over the course of 3 movies, there's no reason for us to think that they wouldn't murder them.
No.
Having said that, for me, there's like the tiniest bit of plausibility. You're
a raptor apologist.
I am a raptor apologist. Just the very idea, because you know what it is more than anything is the look of the raptor when he blows on that thing. The first thing, there's a raptor that goes, "What the fuck is that?"
Listen, I'm in it for the faces too, but don't you tell me any of this is plausible.
I just like the look on his face where he says,
"Oh yeah,
oh fuck."
The dinosaur facial reactions are the best thing about the series.
That piece of shit skin bag is fucking talking to me.
It's pretty ridiculous on the human side as well, because they at one point they say, "No, do the call for."
Yeah,
let's leave these humans alone and
just
not kill
go
them.
away. Use the call for just go away.
Use the call for there's a taco truck on the other side of the island.
And we've already kind of mentioned the end of this movie, but basically it's like those raptors go away. They walk 10 feet.
And then the military turn up.
They're on the beach and they're safe.
So yeah, and it's like the movie flirts with the idea that it's more cynical than Spielberg is about America, and it turns out that Joe Johnston is as much of a sucker for America as Spielberg is.
Yeah,
because he's sort of like it must have been a misunderstanding, and when push comes to shove, America will send its entire naval military resources to rescue 4 people.
I mean, there weren't this many people that landed on Iwo Jima.
Yeah. And there's one guy in a suit, and I really thought something was gonna.
And that's the first person you see.
Yeah, and I thought it was gonna be like InGen are back or something
Yeah.
like that.
But it's
Actually,
like
that would have been great. That would have been great if it's like InGen. It's like, get the fuck off our island, you are trespassing, and they'll be like, oh yeah, take us away, take us away.
Yeah.
That would have been brilliant.
As it stands, it seems like they're saved by the entire U.S. Army and Marines, and then a banker.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what.
And Jeff from accounting.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the biggest travesty of all, which is Billy is alive. I know that seems counterintuitive, but I'm right.
Yeah. I think it's a problem for this movie.
It's not good.
And it's revealed that as much as it looks like Indiana Jones's hat when it's lying on Alan Grant's face, it is also a magic hat as well.
Yeah.
The magic hat logic extends to this movie too.
Yeah.
And
I don't believe any of those people are from Enid, Oklahoma.
I like that the dinosaurs just fly away, and Alan Grant's response is, "Let him go," just like Principal Skinner. Let him go. Just let him go. It's like, didn't they start all this trouble? Why are you just letting them go?
Like you said at the beginning of this episode, I think we got to just fucking napalm this island. This island is a fucking mess.
And I guess it's like, obviously that they're not exploiting the audience's knowledge that this was the cut ending for the last film, because the audience doesn't know that. Well, we know that. You only know that if you watch the behind the scenes featurette. But there is a sense that this might be a kind of slasher style, last minute. What do you call it? I've forgotten the term.
Like last jump scare? Yeah.
Yeah, last jump scare that they're going to attack the helicopter, and that was the original ending of the last movie.
Mm-hmm.
But they just fly off, and I guess there's a sense it's like if we're going to make another sequel, whatever those
right when we linger on that
movie.
When we linger on that locked door not being locked and kind of just falling open.
Yeah.
That's the gateway to there's more movie. But this movie says, no, there's no more movie.
Yeah, but it says, there could be more mainland dino mayhem at some point. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I agree. We're done. Now, I know you have a credit check.
Quantum leap clouds.
I know you have a credit check. But I'm going to skip to the end of the credit check just to say, am I the only one watching the credits of this movie where I think at the end of the credits they're starting the movie again?
That is my exact note, sir. It ends on that weird quirk of post-2000s entertainment where they end as if it's starting all over again.
Okay, good.
See also The Dark Knight. Yeah, and this was a weird thing that started to happen in this very period. They do it in Keeping Up with the Kardashians as well. When Keeping Up with the Kardashians starts, it fucks with, if you've DVR'd it, and I have.
I have not.
If you've ever DVR'd it, when you think it's the end of the last episode, because the credits that would normally be at the end are coming up, and it's like executive producer Ryan Seacrest. It's like, why do I fucking care? It's sort of like I don't understand what that's about. So you're dead on.
All right,
that is a quality credit check there.
Thank you.
I have taught you well.
What else you got?
Nothing as good as that, sadly.
Excellent.
Let's see where we're at. Well, we already mentioned... Actually, we've talked about a lot of this. We talked about the Alexander Payne of it all.
Yeah.
Based on characters created by Michael Crichton. So this is the first time the series is moving away from adapting a Michael Crichton novel.
This is, yeah, right. It's totally independent.
There's a distinction made in the credits between original themes by and new music by.
Oh, yes.
Which sounds very much like the distinction that Homer Simpson makes when he's talking to Batman Turner Overdrive in the crowd. No new crap. Take care of business. Get to the part about working overtime.
Yeah, he can't even listen to the whole song.
It's the best part. Get to the part about working overtime. This kind of follows up on what I was saying about how the digital worm has turned.
Mm-hmm.
Because by this point, only Stan Winston gets a special effects mention. So it's like he is now in doing animatronics, he is now the outlier. When the first Jurassic Park came out, his way of doing things was the norm. Now he's in the minority.
Yeah.
And I just think that's fascinating. That's like, it's nearly what, like, it's like 8 years since the first movie came out. And in that time, he's the last of his breed.
But,
as they would say in the movie.
You know, the greatest.
Oh, I mean, it's astonishing what he and his studio, I mean, it's a whole workshop of people, achieve. Speaking of the new music, we've got a hotel lounge bar piano version of the Jurassic Park theme, which says everything you need to know. You know, I take a lot of pot shots at John Williams, but when someone else is playing John Williams' music,
it's not quite as good.
It's noticeable. Mm-hmm.
It makes this. That's one of the reasons I think it makes this movie sound like or feel like a low rent Jurassic Park.
Yeah, there is a kind of there's a flavor of cheapness about it, which is. I think it's to do with execution. It's got nothing to do with resources because this movie has money.
Yeah,
and it made money, and it has stars and the studio and big names behind it.
It's the most expensive Jurassic Park up to this point. Yeah,
but yet there is a whiff of cheapness about it too.
Yeah.
Underwater director of photography Michael Ferris. The damage he and his people have done to cinema is insane. I just wanted to single him out in a sort of blacklist capacity.
Of course you did.
It's quite funny, like, you know when you're watching like a movie on AMC and
I do.
They speed up the credits.
Yes.
They speed up the credits so they can get to the next shitty Steven Seagal movie that they're showing. I thought they were doing the same here. I had to sort of like check myself that I wasn't watching this on AMC because they started doing a really pacey version of the Jurassic Park theme, and I was like, oh, am I watching this on TV? But it's like even the end credits are on this accelerated timetable where they've got to get through the theme as fast as possible. There are exactly 2 songs in this movie. One of them is a Randy Newman country and western song. The other is the theme from Barney the Dinosaur.
Yep.
That is this movie's soundtrack.
I made that note, and there's... Oh, shit, I'd have to look it up now, but there's something weird about that particular song of Randy Newman.
Well, there's something even weirder about the Barney the Dinosaur theme.
Well, I can't disagree, but...
Well, no, not the thing that you think is weird.
Oh.
Because normally when you get a song credit, it gives you the lyrics and music, like the authorship of the lyrics and the music. Here it just says music traditional, which as I understand it means when the music comes from like a historical public domain source. So what is the traditional music that underpins the Barney the Dinosaur theme is what I want to know. Is it Camptown Races or My Country 'Tis of Thee? What is this traditional song that the Barney the Dinosaur theme is built on? Any joy?
No.
With your research?
I'm not finding it.
That's it. That's the end of my credit check.
Very good, then. Damn it. What is it? Oh, well. It'll be my... What was my note for the Star Wars series? What did I think I saw?
I knew that you were going to bring it up, and I knew you weren't going to remember. Simultaneously, I knew both things were going to happen. before you even said it. You said, so I mentioned, we'll go back over this again. Apparently we need to. I said something about the credits in advance of my credit check about giant bugs, flying bugs in Attack of the Clones. You said, I got something to say about that when it gets to the credits. And that was it. You never followed
and
up.
I
you
never
recall.
I don't know what I was talking about.
I set you up for it numerous times, and it was just lost to history. Or maybe the listeners can chip in and
yeah, please
let us know if something.
I looked so hard, Tom. I looked so hard at all the notes of that movie a second and a third time trying to find it. It just wasn't there. It's not my fault.
No. Which itself is a Star Wars quote. So good job.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, we both have called this a good movie. Most people disagree with us. You're going to have to tell us what you think.
Once again, the world is against us.
Yeah, it's got problems, but overall, this is a consistently pretty good movie.
We're always picking a fight with the world. like the Germans. In that Norm Macdonald quote, Norm Macdonald.
Oh, yes, very good. You're gonna have to tell us what you think, everybody. You know what to do, or maybe you don't. We don't hear from nearly enough people. But
you know, I remember listening to, I think it was an episode of the How Dare You podcast that you once began by saying to the listeners, I blame you. You don't hear that very often. About this very subject. I was like, that's a bold marketing choice. And I respect the hell out of it. Yeah, get in touch. Let us know. I'm sure you've got plenty to say about the Jurassic Park sequels and how we've got everything wrong about them.
Yeah, we when we do hear, we hear that plenty.
It's low-hanging fruit. Tell me about how I've got Spielberg wrong all over again.
I should write in.
Yeah, I think it's funny that the last time we did a Spielberg series, I was criticized for not paying respects to a wider berth of Steven Spielberg movies, and now I've gone all in on The Lost World.
Yeah,
not Schindler's List, not Bridge of Spies.
No,
The Lost World.
Famously, a few episodes ago, you were like, "Yeah, Schindler's List. I mean, who gives a shit, really?" But The Lost World, let me tell you, undervalued.
Speaking out for the little guy.
All right.
There's no littler guy than Steven Spielberg. When you gonna do the big one?
All right, everyone. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, of course, nowhere else. We don't care. Send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. When you hear us next, I mean, how do you get people on a fucking island with dinosaurs, Tom? We're pitching sequels. All right. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Bosa Productions, my name is Michael Shantz. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
I'm like a booking agent. That's two Michael Jeter quotables. He runs away with the quotables in this movie. And they're within seconds of each other.
We didn't talk one lick about that guy.
No, I know.
Except that he dies. He's the fucking bait.
He's one of the many people in this movie who are not who they say they are.
Yes, exactly.
There's a sense that, you know, when you're a surrogate character in a sequel, you're basically the equivalent of people who lie on their resumes.
That's great. All right, we'll end it there. So long, everybody. We'll be back soon.